Now News, Los Angeles.
They ended his life and ended the promise that he was to give to this city.
Now at 9, 3 men convicted of robbing and killing an off-duty LAPD officer have been sentenced. They were hit with federal charges after the 2022 attack.
KCAL News assignment editor Mike Rogers is at the desk. And Mike, you worked this story as it broke more than 2 years ago. And today, the case finally coming to a close.
Yeah, that's right, Pat and Juan. The 3 suspects in this have been sentenced, 2 of them to 30 years in prison, the other 50 years in prison. I want to show you some video here. This was the scene where Officer Fernando Arroyos was shot and killed during an alleged robbery. Now, these 3 men accused street gang members apparently tried to rob him for some jewelry that he had. Now, in the course of that, shots were fired. He ended up dying. This was all while him and his girlfriend were searching for a house down there in South LA. Sheriff's Department officials ended up taking the case. They eventually arrested the 3 suspects a little bit later. Today, the U.S. Attorney's Office spoke about the case and spoke about gang violence in general in our area.
The truth is that gangs bring death and destruction on our community, and most often on those very neighborhoods they claim to represent. Hard-working people, and let's be honest, mostly black and brown people trying to get by, have to live in fear of the gangs.
Yeah, now what's also interesting in this is charged at a federal level. So what they were technically convicted on was not murder. They were convicted on racketeering charges because the U.S. Attorney's Office alleged and later proved in court that these were cases that involved an organization, which was that gang. That's how they ended up getting them on the racketeering charges. This was also very interesting because when this happened, Sheriff Alex Villanueva was running the Sheriff's Department, never presented it to the LA County DA's office, went straight to the feds. And ultimately, they got that very long conviction and sentence, guys.
Thanks so much, Mike, for that update.
Appear in federal court today in connection with the robbery and murder of LAPD officer Fernando Arroyos. LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva has handed this case over to federal authorities, bypassing District Attorney George Gascon. Eyewitness News reporter Rob Hayes has a response from the DA's office this morning about that. Rob.
John, is this a show of no confidence in LA County District Attorney George Gascon? LAPD's police chief skirted that issue last night, but the sheriff did not. He flat out said Gascon's office would not charge the suspects appropriately.
This is all in relation to the shooting death of off-duty LAPD officer Fernando Arroyos on Monday. He was house shopping with his girlfriend near Watts when the 2 were robbed. Investigators say when Arroyos fought back, they shot him. Yesterday, federal prosecutors charged 3 members of the Florencia 13 gang as well as an associate. 27-year-old Luis Rios, 22-year-old Ernesto Cisneros, 34-year-old Jesse Contreras, and 18-year-old Haley Grisham, all hit with murder and racketeering charges. The investigation is being led by the LA County Sheriff's Department, and when asked why they circumvented the LA County DA's office and instead went with federal prosecutors, Sheriff Alex Villanueva said he felt Gascon would have gone too easy on the suspects.
We definitely had conversation with the local DAs, and their response was not satisfactory to the gravity of the situation. And they were consistent with the special orders from the district attorney. But
can you elaborate?
And I believe their plan was to just prosecute a simple murder with no gun enhancements, no gang enhancements, nothing. And that did not really cover the depravity of this crime.
We reached out to George Gascon's office this morning, which issued this statement. Quote, "We support the federal authorities taking the case and will be in communication with all the parties involved. It was indicated to us that the case was referred to the federal authorities who filed charges. As such, we did not have an opportunity to review the case."
Now, the 4 suspects are due in federal court later this afternoon for arraignment. If convicted, they face a potential death penalty and a minimum of life in prison without the possibility of parole.
In Los Angeles, California, on January 10th of 2022, 3 gang members decided to rob off-duty LAPD officer Fernando Arroyos because he had a gold chain around his neck. The men approached Arroyos, patted him down, and took the chain and wallet. Then patted down his girlfriend and stole all of her belongings. After robbing them, Luis Alfredo de la Rosa and Ernesto Cisneros opened fire. Arroyos was hit by a single bullet that killed him. In July of 2023, the 3 men pled guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to violate the RICO Act. Rios and Cisneros were sentenced to 50 years, and the third man, Jesse Contreras, was sentenced to 35 years.
Arrest in the murder of an LAPD officer in South LA. His mother explains why she believes her son was targeted. 4 people now accused in the killing of Officer Fernando Arroyo.
In the meantime, his family grieves over their loss as they prepare their final goodbyes. CBS 2's Rachel Kim spoke with the slain officer's mother. She's live in Pico Union tonight. Rachel?
Yes, Susie and Jeff, preparations for a vigil in honor of Officer Fernando Arroyos is underway right now here at LAPD's Olympic Station. This is where he was last assigned, and he was a 3-year veteran of the LAPD. Earlier today, we spoke with his grief-stricken mother. She says although nothing will bring her son back, she's thankful and relieved arrests have been made in his murder. She wants justice to be served.
I love you too much. He's my son, he's my baby, he's only one son. I don't have a grandson. I don't know, I say, Grandma, I love you, no more.
Even in her deep pain and sorrow, Claudia Membreno wants everyone to know that her 27-year-old son, LAPD officer Fernando Arroyos, was her world.
My heart is broken because it's, I tell it's only one son. And I tell my mom is passed away 1 month ago.
Investigators say just after 9 p.m. on Monday, Officer Arroyos was off duty when he was shot and killed while house hunting in South LA with his girlfriend. They were approached by 3 men in a pickup truck in an armed robbery attempt. Officer Arroyos was hit during an exchange of gunfire. He later died at the hospital.
Somebody say my son is died, passed away. It's terrible for me.
On Tuesday, Sheriff SWAT swarmed the area where Officer Arroyos was gunned down, and they soon detained 5 people for questioning. Today, the LA County Sheriff's Department announced that their homicide investigators have arrested 4 people in connection with Officer Arroyos' murder.
We'll have more information later on that we can confirm what the individuals were arrested for and other details of that, but we can't comment any further on the case right now because we're still right in the middle of investigating.
I'm happy because, but my son is never come to me, but I'm happy because I say the police is helping me.
Membreno beams with pride talking about her son who graduated from UC Berkeley with honors. She said since he was 10 years old, he wanted to become a police officer. I asked her what she would say to the people who took him away from her.
The first time, and I say, why? Because it's only for robbery 1 change. That change is at $200. For $200, I take the life of my son. I know I have my dad, I have my husband, but it's a difference. Because that is my boy. That is my little baby, my boyito.
The vigil for Officer Arroyos is set to begin at 6 p.m. here at LAPD's Olympic Station. Chief Michael Moore is expected to speak, and the public is welcome to attend. Officer Arroyos is survived by his mother, father, stepfather, and girlfriend. Reporting live in Pico Union near Koreatown, Rachel Kim, CBS 2 News.
All right, Rachel, thank you very much.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be giving a major update on a video we did a few months ago, and that was on the death of off-duty LAPD officer Fernando Arroyos, who was murdered by 3 Florencia 13 gang members in January of 2022 while he was house hunting in the Watts section of Los Angeles with his girlfriend. He was 27 years old. He was a veteran of the LAPD. He had only been on the force a few years. This video, this case, when I did it, got a lot of responses. We're going to get into that here in just a bit. Obviously posted the updated news clips to give you an idea of what each member was sentenced with. I also gave some news clips that I'd posted on my original video to give you an idea of the story. But, excuse me, what happened was on the January 10th, 2022, off-duty officer Arroyos is with his girlfriend. They are house hunting, all right? Now, what's important to remember, okay, is Fernando Arroyos, along with his girlfriend, Angela Mendoza, they are in a rough section. So I will say this: after I posted this video, I was getting a lot of people going, "Why was he house hunting down there? What was going on?" Some people were kind of insinuating he was up to something else. He wasn't just out innocently house hunting. I don't have any evidence to back that up. We'll kind of come back to this point in a minute. We'll put a pin in that for right now. But anyway, he's out house hunting. Florencia 13 is a notorious street gang up and down the West Coast. They are the Sereno set, okay? So, they've been around, though, a very, very long time. They have an obvious stronghold in California, and they are not to be messed with. They are not to be tried. They have a strong, strong presence. Their members, at least the ones like you're seeing here, are putting in a lot of work. Two of these guys, so three of them were charged with the murder. Two of these guys were out committing robberies. They had robbed two people earlier in the day on the same day that off-duty officer Arroyos was killed. And those guys were Rios and Cisneros, okay? They were actually, yeah, that's what it said, man. They had been out committing robberies. So, it's just one of those things, man, where it's like wrong place, wrong time. They were in a black pickup truck. The three gang members did. And to give you their exact names, it's Luis Alfredo de la Rosa Rios, 29 years old, Ernesto Cisneros, 22 years old, and Jesse Contreras, 34 years old. Also with them was Rios' girlfriend, Marie Grisham. She was like an accomplice with this, all right? So Arroyos was house hunting on Monday, January 10th, 2022, with his girlfriend. A black pickup truck drove down the block, sees, Arroyos with his girlfriend Angela Mendoza. Apparently, the gang members go, "Let's get him," okay? And Rios and Cisneros, right? Luis Alfredo de la Rosa Rios and Ernesto Cisneros, they did a lot of this, and they're the ones that actually get out. They point guns at Fernando Arroyos and his girlfriend, take Arroyos' wallet, they take the gold chain, and that's what originally caught their attention was Arroyos' gold chain. They take items off both people, but quickly it escalates, okay? Quickly it escalates into gunfire being exchanged. Arroyos does manage to get off a shot, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the gang members also get off a shot, and it strikes Arroyos in front of his girlfriend. So like it states, at some point after getting the items off of him, gunfire is exchanged. Arroyos sustains that single gunshot wound, and he runs from the area before he collapsed in an alley. The two defendants jump back in the truck. Responding law enforcement officers, they found bystanders performing CPR on Arroyos. Remember, this happened all in front of his girlfriend. The officers loaded up Fernando Arroyos into a patrol car and took him to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. Arroyos' girlfriend, Angela Mendoza, when she walked into court, she was carrying a framed photo of the late officer, her late boyfriend. She spoke to the court when these guys were sentenced. Quote, she said, "I am reliving the worst day of my life and asking for the maximum sentence for these degenerates who took my honey away," she said from the podium. She goes on to say, "What an exceptional human being was ripped away from us." She spoke of his sense of humor, singing voice, and she thanked Sheriff Villanueva for bringing the case to federal rather than local prosecutors to ensure more stringent sentencing. Now, we'll touch on that right now. Sheriff Alex Villanueva, when he got the case, instead of taking it to L.A. District Attorney George Gascon, who's pretty well known, he's done a lot of cases, California, LAPD, if some of you guys live in LA and maybe you don't know this, but all of us who don't but know about LA and California, they are very soft on crime. It's very liberal. And the reason Sheriff Villanueva did not want this to go to the state level was because he was worried that DA George Gascon would not charge these guys properly, would not give them the punishment befitting the killing of a police officer. So he took it to the feds, which caused a little rift. There was a little rift in the media. There was some back and forth. The DA said that the reasoning for the sheriff to not take the case to them, the reasons that he gave, basically wasn't sufficient. It didn't satisfy them. But regardless, the feds picked it up. And the three gang members end up pleading guilty to one count of the RICO count, right? The RICO Act. And that's basically That law was created decades ago to get the mafia, to get the mob, to go after gangs, to go after large groups of people instead of charging them. I mean, you're charged individually, but it's a way to kind of round everybody up under one umbrella. And that's what happened. Now, the girlfriend, Marie Grisham, she was also charged. She pled guilty to a violent crime in aid of racketeering. She'll get sentenced in September of this year. But these three, they really wrapped up in the RICO for that reason. Now, the actual sentencing. Luis Alfredo de la Rosa Rios and Cisneros were each sentenced to 50 years. And I'm sorry, that's Ernesto Cisneros. They each got 50 years. Jesse Contreras got 35 years. Now, another reason that Villanueva went to the feds is because when you get that time in the feds, you're going to do 85, 90% of that time. It's different at the state level. The state level, you can get a lot of good time off. There's early parole, early release. There's all these things. And California has a lot of these programs. For as tough as CDC, California Departments of Corrections, is, they are also notorious for being very liberal. So they wanted to basically make sure that these guys did not see the light of day until they were very old men. It just is what it is. Jumping back to the night of the killing. How they rounded these guys up so fast was immediately following the shooting, detectives arrived. They retrieved a loaded handgun from the scene belonging to one of the suspects. And the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department received a report of a man suffering from a gunshot wound in the area of Junction Street and East 60th Street, about 1.5 miles from the site of the shooting. Investigators later determined the wounded man was Cisneros, who had sustained the gunshot during the shootout with Arroyos. That's the shot that Arroyos got off before he died. Officer Arroyos got off before he died. Contreras was also found in the area, hiding inside the garage of his residence in the 5900 block of Junction Street, where a second handgun was retrieved. Rios and Grisham, boyfriend and girlfriend, who were then a couple, were later found and taken in custody at their home. Rios and Contreras further admitted in their plea agreements to committing armed robberies against 2 victims outside a bar in the Florence Firestone area earlier in the day. So these guys, man, they're active, okay? They are active gang members. They're actively putting in work, and this is what happens, man. People think that stuff like this doesn't happen. Happens. It does. It's absolutely no joke. And some of you might be going, well, why didn't they get life? Well, to work it out, and this is kind of interesting, to work it out, you saw that in the news clip. They couldn't charge him with the actual murder. They had to charge him with the RICO, and that's kind of why the sentences were what they were. Quote, U.S. Attorney Martin Estrada said, gangs bring death and destruction, most often upon the very communities they claim to represent. And that is true. Again, I don't have opinions one way or another. I don't know anything about the 3 guys that committed this crime, but it's true. They do more harm to their communities than go there, because people aren't getting on planes. People aren't getting on buses and traveling to outside communities to commit crime. They're doing it right where they grew up. And that's just facts. And I'm in an area where there's high gang activity, and it's just the truth, man. Now, really quick, I will say this. I'll touch on this because I had a lot of comments on this. A lot of people, and it's fair enough, I got to ask, right? Or at least talk about it. A lot of people were like, what was Officer Arroyos doing in the Watts section at night house hunting, right? I had a lot of people insinuating in comments saying there was more going on. It wasn't as clean a case as you would say. And I have to say, I don't have any absolute proof of that. But this is why I like these videos. This is why I like to have these discussions, because it is a fair question. It's like, he's a cop. He's smart. You've got jewelry on at nighttime. You're out walking around in a known crime-ridden area. It's a fair enough question to ask. So comment down below. Let's have this discussion below. But there you guys have an update on the death of Officer Arroyos. His killers were sentenced to 2 of them got 50 years. 1 of them got 35. We'll see what the girlfriend gets in September. Until then, peace.